Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Weathering my Trick or Treat Studios 1/6 scale Rob Zombie 2007 Tyler Mane Michael Myers figure. Check out the review, I've already reviewed it on the channel. An amazing piece. Started off by weathering the Tombstone here, just very watered down black acrylic paint mixed with some brown. And just, you can see what I'm doing here. Just going around the edges and also all over the piece, subtly just put in watery, mostly water, black watered down and brown mixed in paint, and then rubbing my finger over the surface so that the watery paint will kind of stay into the deeper sections, crevices of the Tombstone, just to give it more age. Did the back, the sides, everywhere. Such an amazing accessory. Really very happy with this Tombstone. It's really solid and heavy, and when you do that and you're rubbing your finger, your thumb over the raised sections, some of the paint gets left behind in the recesses there, and that's the finished Tombstone, just weathered up nicely. It makes it look heavier as well when you do the weathering, but take your time with that. You know, I could do more. I could add some green, some kind of mold as well, and more mud, more brown. I might actually do that because I filmed this all last night, and I still probably will go back before I finish the rest of this video when I show you the finished product. I'll probably go back and work some more on certain things. I've done more work on the hands since this bit of footage. This is the perma blood. You can get that on, I guess, eBay, Etsy, places like that. So once I added the blood stains, I wanted to put some nasty, just brown, watery paint also in places on the hands. Wanted to make them look really nasty. So you got some blood, some mud, and just general nastiness all over the hands. Incredible hands with this figure. Really, really good sculpts. The vein work, the bone, it's all present and correct. Now go in here, and I mostly just use my finger, you know, just dabbing down on the watery paint that I'm applying. You know, I actually have a little bit of perma blood mixed into the watery brown paint here as well. So you get different types of blood stains, fresh ones, old blood stains as well underneath the fresh blood. So I did this to all the hands, the fists, the knife holding hand in particular. I made sure to, you know, get some blood, some dry blood around where his hand would wrap around the handle of the knife. It's a lot of fun doing this stuff. It really does take the figures to the next level, but take your time. If you haven't done it before, be very careful. Maybe practice on something. Like, you surely have a couple of spare hands laying around, you can practice on them. That's my heat gun that I use for drying everything. You get them on Amazon, eBay. Here's the Tots knife. Not the most impressive knife, so I didn't really care if anything went wrong with this because I have a Shadow Fergo real metal and wood one. So I put some perma blood on the blade, and then I get my heat gun and I heat up the blood until it starts to bubble, and then when it dries it looks really nasty. And be very careful because I melted my knife. Don't melt your knife. I made it work though. I had a bit of a scare for a minute. When it started to bubble, the knife started to melt. So don't do that. But like I said, I managed to save it. You can see how the perma blood is starting to bubble and change shape. And then when you put black watered down paint over the top of it, it starts to look really old and nasty. I just decided to go full on crazy with this knife. It looks like it's got chunks of flesh all over it and blood. That's the perma blood once it starts to bubble. And yeah, even though I melted my knife, I managed to save it and make it work. So now we've got like a possibly dream sequence nightmare hospital scene knife from Halloween 2. So I might use that with my dream sequence Myers. But that's how I get the really nasty blood effect. Perma blood heated up, and then go over it with watery black paint just to give the blood a bit more of a nasty thick look. So that turned out very gnarly. And then I proceeded to, I did a little black wash over the neck as well, because there's sculpted into the neck. You have to look really carefully to see it, but they've got like wrinkles and lines in his neck, and when you do the black wash and you rub your thumb over the wash to get into the little recesses there, it brings out the detail of the sculpt of the neck and makes it look more realistic. So then I did some weathering on the coveralls and the t-shirt. The usual watered down brown and black paint just going into crevices, or, you know, the coveralls, sleeves, all the areas it should be. Didn't completely repaint the mask, but I did add the yellowing to the edges and just went in and did a bit of weathering here and there along the hairline. I wanted to almost keep it stock, but I ended up doing about 20 minutes of work on the actual mask itself. I went around the holes, the eye holes of the mask, just around the very edges to just give it a little extra depth. Here are the pictures from the Sean Clark video on YouTube, where he has the actual, or one of the masks that Tyler Mane wore in the 2007 film, in the scene specifically where he's smashing in the ceiling at the end. That's the mask he was wearing, so I wanted to copy that blood stain, and you can see the yellowing around the cracks and the edges. And there's one of my pictures from the review, and this is the end result for the head sculpt. Didn't go crazy with it, just added the blood stains, yellowed around the cracks of the neckline. Careful not to step on my dog, and back to the mask again. Speaking of masks, that Art the Clown mask in the background is still here, still for sale. It's a beautiful tinsley rehauled mask that I did, Art the Clown. Some really gnarly blood work on that. That's a good mask. That's the one I wanted to keep if it didn't sell, and it hasn't sold, so I'll probably be keeping it. But if you want it, you can get in touch with me. And there's also a Santa art that's been rehauled over there. Comes with the glasses as well. Little plug for the masks that are available. But yeah, there is the finished head sculpt. So I'm really happy with that. I was worried about doing that long blood stain on his jawline there. I was worried about messing that up, but I just copied the pictures from the Sean Clark video, and I was able to come out pretty good with that in the end. Now here's a really important one. The collar on the coveralls is fine, but I wanted to make it look a little bit more as it appears in the film. So I came up with this very simple trick, and you'll see that in the next bit of footage. I was trying to get them to stay down, like I'm pressing them down there. So then I pinched the collar. You can see where it kind of folds over on itself. I pinched it really hard with my thumb and finger, and it stays like that if you do that for a little while. And now the collar looks a lot more realistic, and it sits better, and very, very nifty little trick there I came up with. I just rubbed some real genuine earth and soil into the crevices of the tombstone as well, just to make it even more realistic. So actual real dirt rubbed all over the edges in certain other areas, just to give it even more realism. So then I started watching the Sean Clark video again and paid more attention to the coveralls. Realised that I need to fray the ends of the legs, as I've done here on the right leg, and that is the left that I haven't started on yet. So you can see the difference. It's worth doing. I used like a serrated edge little knife and just scrape along the edges until I get the desired effect. It's looking pretty good here. And then I'll go in and do more weathering around the edges. Took lots of screenshots of the video as he was panning up the front and the back of the coveralls to make sure I was putting the holes in the right places. That was just the beginning of the hole. I finessed it a little bit after this footage. So we got our holes in place, fraying of the edges, and then I dry brush the hair with like a very light brown with a bit of grey in there to represent the kind of dusty look from being under the floorboards. So dry brushing the raised parts of the hair, just give it more depth. It just makes it look more detailed, and I think it really helps the overall look of the head sculpt, because it did, have a fair bit of dust and nastiness embedded in the hair from being under the floorboards for all those years. I really like the way that came out. Very happy with the subtle touch-up paint job on the mask. I love the eyes that they put inside this head sculpt. It really brings it to life when the light hits the eyes inside there. So now we'll move on to the blood work around the bullet wound there and the exit wound. Need to make that more gory after this footage. I'm just keeping you up to date on what I'm doing, adding more weathering to the coveralls, not going too heavy with it, but there was definitely a fair bit of blood in there. By the halfway point in the movie, even got some blood on the tread. from where he'd been stepping in pools of blood. And he's starting to really look pretty nasty. So I did a little bit more work just on weathering. A little bit of blood splatter on the neck as well. And this is the finished article. Although I may always go back possibly and add some more. But this is a look I'm pretty happy with. Like before the midpoint of the film. It's not too gory, but there's definitely some signs of interactions with folks. Getting shot in the shoulder there. Got bloody hands. And I'm very happy with him. So enjoy the rest of the footage. There's a fair bit of footage coming up, just showcasing the finished product. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's a fun figure to weather and repaint and mess with, and it doesn't really require much done to it at all. It's brilliant right out of the box, but could definitely do a little bit of weathering here and there. So I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you had fun watching it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button on the video. That'll help more people find it. I really appreciate your support with that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already, and follow me on Instagram at DKnight333 because I will be putting up plenty of pictures. And I hope you're all doing okay out there. I'll see you soon. Take it easy. Bye bye.